Greta. Hey, good girl. Come here, Greta. Oh, I brought a halter. Not tonight. Hey guys, this is Kelsey from Briar Farm. Mike and I are super excited. We want to share with you. We finally got our MAEAP verification for the farm. So MAEAP is a Michigan Department of Agriculture program, and it stands for Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program. And what it is it's a way that the state helps farmers like us run their farms in ways that are like the most in balance with nature. So the Michigan Department of Agricultural and Rural Development works to assure food safety, protect animal and plant health, sustain environmental stewardship, provide consumer protection, enable rural development, and foster efficient administration operations through service, partnership, and collaboration. So basically, MAEAP is a way that government ecologists can help farmers like us run our farms in ways that are most in balance with nature. So we needed to be conscious about like where rainwater would run through our farm so that we're not flushing, manure into the creek that runs through our property. And they also have a lot of other great resources to help you like plan when you're building new buildings, if you're putting in watering systems, rotating crops, like rotating pastures, so that you can graze your land more efficiently. So just because it's environmentally friendly doesn't mean that it's not also more cost efficient. So it was a really great way for us to get some input and good advice about how we can do things better here. So it took us about a year and a half to work through this process. And we were already running our farm. I feel like we were doing a pretty good job to begin with, but we have a lot of hillside on our property. So this paddock here, where we keep our goats, we have it subdivided now into an upper and lower half. And part of that is for what we're doing with MAEAP. We want to make sure that we're keeping a significant buffer of green, healthy plants to help pull out any nutrients from the goat's manure before it hits the creek at the bottom of the hill. So this allows us to manage the grazing and the manure and nutrient runoff into the creek really effectively. The biggest issue is over here where we keep our bucks now. If you look back in time through our channel and our videos, we initially used this blue shed up here to house our beef steers, and then eventually our Dexters when we brought them home. And it's a great little spot, but the cattle, especially our first beef steers, since they were bigger and not Dexters, they tear up the hillside a little bit more. And so there was exposed soil and a lot of manure at the top of the hill. And so the MAEAP verifiers were concerned about runoff down this hill from the cows getting into the creek. We ended up relocating our cattle, so their permanent home, their feedlot on our farm is located in a place with more neutral elevation, so there's not a hillside there. And then we moved our bucks here, who are super light on the land. For most of the summer, the plant life in this paddock was taller than the goats, so I think it's a better fit.
And we are allowed to graze cattle even though we have a creek system. This isn't a trout stream or anything like that. It's basically swamp drainage. But you are allowed to graze the cattle along a creek system with the MAEAP program, but we limit the amount of time that they are on this north side of our property, and it's not a huge acreage.
And that works out well for us. So like when it's really dry in the heat of summer, down by the creek, the plant life down here stays lush when other places on the farm the grass is dry and not growing. So it's nice for us to be able to manage the cattle's access to this paddock so that when we need it, there is fresh green stuff when we don't have it anywhere else on the farm in like August and the end of July.
And some of the other things were water quality, as far as our home water and livestock water. It needs to be tested free of bacteria and nitrates and nitrites. and the well has to be located a certain distance from any paddock or manure storage or compost pile. So all that had to be taken into consideration for the verification process.
And there was soil testing too. We had to test our soil loads to make sure that we didn't have like excess buildup of nutrients from manure basically overloading the soil. And that's something too that the meat program can offer some guidance when they see your soil test results and knowing what you want to grow in that piece of pasture or field. They can help give you some ideas about ways to amend your soil or change, try some different practices that'll help even out, if you have an overload of something or a deficiency of another nutrient in your soil.
They also want to take into consideration any synthetic chemicals that you apply, so you have to keep records of that, and any synthetic fertilizer, and even basically it can be as simple as bucket loads of manure that you apply to a field, so for the cropping system.
Something else that I really liked about having the meat verifiers on our farm was they talked a lot about safety, so how to safely store those things on your farm, which especially since we have little kids and there always seems to be a goat on the wrong side of the fence. Having some good thoughts and ideas about how to take care of those things safely. And they also hooked us up with a free spill kit in case we did spill something, or sharps container for when we do a lot of preventative veterinary care. So a lot of vaccinations, castration. So it's nice to have a safe place to store and dispose of those sharps.
But I think we could have gotten through the process much quicker if it wasn't for this creek.
Yeah.
Because if the creek wasn't there, then we wouldn't have to worry about the water runoff from the barn and manure running down the hill and all that stuff. So, but when they came back the last time, they were really happy with the improvements that we made. So they were able to verify us. Yeah,
and I would recommend the process to anybody. It was the people who came to our farm were all really positive. They were only here to look for ways to help us do what we want to do better. Of course, they did say that this was their favorite farm too. Well, it's true. It's probably because of me. But it never felt like Big Brother coming in, looking over our shoulder for things they could penalize or fine us for. I never got that vibe from them. And I think it's confidential and separate from everything else in MDARD. I could be wrong about that. But it was 100% a positive process. It took a lot longer than we expected, but... Well, one of the positive things about that, too, is that since we are verified, if somebody does complain about seeing an animal in the creek, basically they have our backs saying that we're environmentally verified, we manage the land in a way where if they're in the creek, they're not there long, and really, for the most part, they use the little bridge to cross the creek. Occasionally they'll take a drink, but usually they jump over it, or they rarely do we see one in actually the creek. Well, itself. If it's super hot in the summer, they might stand in it. But I think choosing the Dexters, if we were to run, I don't know, a cow twice this size, like an Angus or something, we'd probably have to have fewer of them. But the Dexters, being as small and lightweight as they are, they're really well suited for this. And even this hillside too, we close this off when they're overgrazing it, which it looks like they need to be shut off from it. Yes, I just felt bad. But it's almost winter time, so they'll be in the barn and in the log cabin, so eating hay, staying warm. I think one of my favorite things about doing the meat verification was everybody loves to talk about their farm, and because it's such a special place to you, and it was really nice to have people who are extremely knowledgeable about farming and ecology to come and walk around with us and get to talk, and we could pick their brains about things we were wondering specifically about our place. That to have that kind of attention and expertise here for us to chat with them was incredibly valuable.
Yeah, the verifier in our area, he's super nice guy, and enjoyed having him.
Yeah, and we worked with a couple different technicians who were also very approachable, helpful, and knowledgeable.
Yep. So if you're in Michigan, we encourage you to reach out to the what did we go through, the Michigan State Extension Office, to learn more about the MAEAP certification program, and hopefully you learned a little bit of how we went through the process, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.